Hey, what is going on, everyone? How you feeling? How you doing? What is the word? And how are things with you? What is going on, everyone? I am Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, and I am coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. So, welcome, my friends, to the dark side of the room. Now, once again, we are dual streaming because why not, right? We're totally live streaming currently on YouTube and on our regular thing right there. So Yeah, my monitor is sitting up showing me like the wrong one. It's like, no, this is the stream from yesterday, yo. Yeah, but yeah, we're live right here, right now on Twitch and YouTube. And how are you guys holding up? Oh my God, we are here. It's the day. Like, this is weird. I think, oh, there we go. Man, my latency is a little bit, what's the term I'm looking for? Long. I think my latency is long, but anyway, what's it? Anyhow, all of that jazz. How are you guys doing? Now, right now, we are talking about some stuff, all right? I love talking to people. Last night for Warp Tumbler C23, that was some really good stuff. But before we get started with the rest of the show and all that stuff, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's here. All of our people out there in the chat, you know who you are. And of course, this is the time where I'm like, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, subscribe to the channel here on Twitch. Just subscribe to all the channels. I need the work. Also, we're running a goal set right now over on the Twitch stream. We're trying to reach 30 subs, and we are at we're at 24 of 30 subs. So let's see if we can pull that off this show. Also, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can reach me over at backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on the social media that we all have and nobody likes. That is Twitter and Instagram. Also at Back in the Deck, and follow us over on them TikToks over at BidP. So if you're watching on YouTube, links are in the description down below. So I hope everything is turning out pretty good. If you guys want to help keep us afloat and all that jazz, well, you can do so in a number of ways. The first primary way would be to subscribe. The second way is absolutely to share. And when I say share, I mean like take a link to one of our shows and post it in the social media that you don't normally check. All right, just put it out there for people to be like, oh, they posted something. Hey, look at that. And then just walk away. Just walk away. Just share it. Let the people come in on their own and all that stuff. If you are new to the channel, well, I'm just letting you guys know flat out, we are a channel of nerds. All right. We love the gaming. We love the tabletopping. We love the TV shows. We're not like the average person. Okay. So there's a whole lot of differences between my experience and a lot of the experiences of the people here. And we talk about that kind of stuff, but we don't get political. We don't get religious. Sometimes we get economic because, let's face it, in a lot of our hobbies, this stuff can cost a lot of money. And that economic gap between hobbyists can actually leave kind of a chasm that makes people feel bad. So we talk about that stuff. But mainly we talk about D&D and tabletop miniatures games and all that stuff. Now, if you like the shows, then make sure that the channel grows. And how can you do that? Well, that's simple. All you got to do is, again, subscribe, share, all that jazz, or you can push that little button down there marked Patreon, and that'll take you to patreon.com/BID_P, and you guys can become a patron. Now, I got 6 levels on the Patreon. That $20, $50, and $100 a month mark is to help us with our community outreach, where I go to community centers in disenfranchised areas and give away comic books and give away role-playing games and miniatures and all of that jazz. All right. We also got a Discord server, y'all. Discord, and I put that Discord address right there in the chat every single show, like every 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So yeah, that's the thing. Hopefully, oh my God. Let's see here. No, my rates per second are going good. I'm recording fine. And yeah, looks like everything is connecting pretty well, but Twitch is being a little wacky. in the place where YouTube isn't. So that's interesting in and of themselves. And of course, you can always chat with me right here. Just right there. Look at that. That's right there. Isn't that pretty? That's right there. And I can talk with you guys as we go. So with all that, major shout outs to my royalty tier on Patreon, specifically being Queen Shannon Boom Boom Lay, Queen Laura Holton, Queen Jennifer Kroll, Queen Nolan, and of course Queen Shaylee Watson. We also have our King tier consisting of His Majesty Christopher Chalmers and Her Majesty Laura Gross, and our ace in the hole, Joseph Hines. So thank you guys for being here. And so Tuesday is an interesting day for me. It's an interesting day. You see, this is the day that my girl has to go into her mom's place, because you know where we come from, you spend 1 day a week with your parents, especially if one of them is slightly alive. And my day was Wednesday until last year, but her day is Tuesday, so I pretty much have the house and the studio to myself all day. And I was looking at some stuff that I've been working with between the battle reports, the miniature production, and I finally put in a new order for some resin so I can get those minis out to that preschool and some of the stuff that my patrons want, not to mention going back into production with the dice rollers, so that's all good. But it hit me between the Dresden Files card game, Warzone, Gaslands, Stargrave, Frostgrave, Ranges of Shadow Deep, Grimdark Future Firefight, Dead Zone, Warpath, Labyrinth the board game, Unstable Unicorns, Dungeons and Dragons, Esper Genesis, the Dresden Files RPG from the Fate system, In Nomine, Mutants and Mastermind, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, and Paranoia. I play a lot of games. Oh my God. I'm like sitting up going, you know what? That's a lot of gaming that I do, that I can do, and all that stuff. And I'm just like, dude, am I spreading myself a little too thin? Seriously, is this really necessary? As you guys know, this weekend I went to Guildhouse Games over in Bellflower, California, and I played some Grimdark Firefight. And I took my Warpath stuff. I was checking out what they had on the shelves, you know. And again, these are all games that I play, not the ones that I study or research. And we're not even getting in to the hobby aspect. Okay, we're not talking about the terrain building and all that stuff. But it makes it made me think of something, which is when I gave the demo of Dead Zone, I talked to the owner of the store, and he's really into the one-page rule stuff, as am I. Oh my God, I love the one-page rule stuff. And the one-page rule stuff is like 5 games in one, between the Grimdark Future, Age of Fantasy, the skirmish games for both of them, the Necromunda analog, and of course the Starships battle, which is very Necromunda kind of thing on that, along with the Regiments game, which is like old school Warhammer Fantasy. Okay, so we're talking that company alone within its ecosystem has 8 games, and all of them are free. And of course, I'm running 4 to 5 D&D games. I might be picking up a 6th one with Roaming Dragon Games very, very soon. For you guys in Southern California that actually want to sit at one of my gaming tables, I will let you guys know how you can do that when I get all of that stuff worked out. Okay. And I look at, like yesterday, we talked about the Protestant work ethic, when it comes to gaming and how the hard work is its own reward. But I actually also start to think that I have one main friend. I have one main friend that I game with. And this main friend is a very close friend. He and I go back years. And within those years, he and I talk about a lot of different things, okay? A lot of different things. But one of the things that we both love doing is we love learning new games, okay? Now, I know I like learning new games because I didn't grow up with this world. I really became an official member of this world as an adult once I started working at a game store. Before then, I was kind of a tourist, but once I became a gamer, as in this was my prime hobby, I'm just like, wow, look at this game. And working at a game store as a salesman, I was required to know a card game, a miniatures game, 2 tabletop role-playing games, a dice game, and 3 board games. I had to know that so that I could talk to my customers like I knew what I was talking about. I kind of had to know what I was talking about. So that was a really big thing, but I haven't really broken off from that. And it's been over 20 years since I've worked at a game store. I'll make it very clear. I like playing games that the people around me haven't broken yet, primarily because there is a certain evolution where the community of any game is so far advanced that no one does the basics anymore. And if no one's doing the basics, that, intention or not, closes the door to new people at a higher rate than having some basic places around. What do I mean by this? Well, imagine, if you will, walking into a store and some people in the store are like, hey, we're going to sit down and play the DC deck building game. You want to play the DC deck building game? And it's like, yeah, totally, cool. Now, how do I play this? Oh, well, you put some cards together and you build your own deck through gameplay and you try to achieve objectives. You good? All right, cool. And then they kick your teeth in with rules and combos that you learn after you're 20, 30, 40 games in. Okay? And as you're getting your 20, 30, or 40, they're up to 60, 70, or 80, so that gap never closes. And that's not really fun since I'm the perpetual new guy. I'm the new guy in town, So when I'm like, okay, I'd like to play a game, and we can see this all over the place in tabletop role-playing right now. If there's a new person at D&D, and they want to create a character, they can sit at the table, but people have been like, if everybody stops and just makes a character from first level on, the thing now is to use the 46 books outside of the big 3, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which was the first supplemental release. They're pulling stuff from Unearthed Arcana. They're pulling stuff from Tasha's and Mordenkainen's and all these other things. And they're doing the optimal build around the people who are brand new. And they can teach the people how to do brand new stuff. But the new person who's learning all of these hacks and all these shortcuts don't really understand. They don't get a chance to understand how these additions or improvements because they never learn the basics. Okay. Um, when I teach music, I call it the Midley Mouse. Okay. You can teach someone how to play guitar by teaching them songs with all the middly, 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 mow, middly, mow, middly, mow. But ask them to do a chord progression of G, D, F sharp, and C, and they won't know A, those aren't in the same key, B, where to put their fingers to do it. They just know how to do what they're told, and they don't know how their instrument works. And having been on both sides of this, it can be very frustrating. Okay. So I like a lot of new games that the people around me haven't had a chance to break yet, so that any group that I form can advance together. This is one of the reasons I tend to start all of my new players off at level 1 with Adventure League rules, i.e., the Player's Handbook and one other supplement book, and no, nothing from Unearthed Arcana. Like my two no's as a GM for your first game at my table is no Unearthed Arcana, and no, you can't play a halfling divination sorcerer or divination wizard. And again, that's one of those hacks, okay? And that's straight out of the Player's Handbook. So no, you can't play a halfling divination wizard, nor can you play a halfling divination wizard that has the lucky feat. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I'll be happy to teach you guys about that. Just send me an email or, join the Patreon on the tier that lets you have a conversation with me. And you guys will see, yeah, it's something, it's a big thing. But when I look at this and I looked at all the games that I run and play, I start to think about what I hated when I was a new gamer. And that was, I was around a lot of people who treat a game or a series of game as their second job. Okay. Now, I come from a place, Los Angeles, the inner city, where hobbies aren't really a thing. Okay. Survival is top notch. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a really, really big thing. So when I ended up moving into a middle class place without having the middle class culture, I understood a hobby as something that you did in your spare time, but having a different definition of what spare time was. And spare time is the time that you have after survival is assured. Okay. And when it came to the time commitment of that, I'm like, look, I don't quite make enough to survive, and I'm trying to pay off debt. So I don't really have that much spare time. But I could dabble in a lot of different games. And honestly, your hobby is my job. So I have to do that kind of thing. Excuse me. So when I look at the people who actually do have the hobbies and I see how much time they put in stuff, I see people with a bunch of time, and they spend that time on, they tend to spend that time on one aspect of a type of hobby. When it comes to tabletop miniatures, okay? And I will keep calling it tabletop miniatures. I'm not calling it Warhammer 40K, all right? But when it comes to tabletop miniatures, I find that people tend to only play one tabletop miniatures game, and that's it. That's all. They don't want to learn anymore. They don't want to see anymore. They don't want to sample anymore. Like, this is what I got. That's it. All right. I eat cheesecake. That's all. Don't come to me for your pie. And I know a lot of people, like, again, my friend that tries a bunch of new games with me all the time. When it comes to tabletop miniatures, he likes the painting of the models. That is the number one thing he does. He paints models. And I'm like, hey, got a new skirmish game pull out your stuff since it's model agnostic and let's play this game. Well, I don't know. I need to get some more miniatures and I want to paint them all. And he likes skirmish games because he spends 2 weeks on one model outside of his day job. And that's the part that I question. The when it comes to hobby life balance, okay? Yeah, I know. And you didn't know that was a debate. I get that, Neon Arlecchino. But when it comes to hobby life balance, I always find myself asking the question, how do people, what's the term? How do people swing this? How do they do it? Because, I have days that I paint. I have days that I research. I'd like to have more days to play, but most of the people that I play with aren't really available when I am, and again, I see people spending hours and hours and hours. One of my oldest gaming buddies had 3 games. 3 games. Okay, they had 3 games. They have anime, and that's what they did when they weren't at their day job. But that was it. 3 games. That was all they had, and they never went outside of that. It's like, these are the games I play. If you want to play anything with me, it's going to be these 3. I have other friends that have just one game. Good friend of mine with a really, really, really big dog. He likes 40K. That's it. 40K. If it's not 40K, he ain't interested. It took me 3 years to get him interested in just looking at Grimdark Future from One Page Rules. And so I take a look at this and I see a gate in a lot of communities, okay? And it's a gate that I never really liked, which was, unless this is your second job, you don't belong here. There seems to be some sort of team, this team tribal thing that goes on that says, the game that I play is the best game. There is no game other than what I play. So, I told you guys about the 40K player I ran into. I'm like, hey, you want to try a different game? And they're like, no, I'll just sit on the couch and do nothing until my 40K player shows up. I'm like, huh, so you're hanging out at a game store waiting to play a game when a game is being offered? I don't understand that. Hey, what's going on, Black and White? So I tend to have to ask the question, do I do too much? Do others do too little? Or is there something that I'm missing? Okay. And in the life that I live, it does tend to be that third. I do tend to be missing something. Again, I learned how to game from a bunch of snobs. I'm not gonna lie. These guys are snobs with the there's only one way to play a game, and this is the way. And if you game differently than what I do, you game differently. It makes it's wrong. It's uncomfortable. Get away from my table. And it was interesting because for a long time, I didn't realize that, and this is something we talk about a lot. The way that you initially learn something tends to lock itself in your head as the way to do it. Okay, we tend to commit to the introduction of a technique or a definition or a habit. This is how this is how, what's the term? I say it all the time. Culture is what happens when you're not paying attention. Okay. Yeah, we got Neon Arlecchino saying, if you don't move all your pawns, their max move on turn 1, what are you even doing? Yeah, exactly. But there are many, many techniques. There are many techniques to play many games. There are many motivations. And when it comes to that work-life balance, that hobby-life balance, it's always good to keep in mind your primary motivations for what it is you're doing in the first place. This is huge. Okay, and by huge, I mean super duper important. I enjoy playing games. Win or lose, I enjoy playing games. Now, I was taught by my old gaming groups to not just play, but to break them. I didn't even know that I was being taught to break games. Moment, leaving absolutely nothing to chance and make sure that all the statistic numbers are within your favor at all times. And that's never really been something that I enjoyed because it seemed to me to be a lot of work for something to do for fun. Now, that doesn't mean don't learn the rules. It just means learn the rules, but play the game more than one optimizes the game. Do you guys get that? And one of the big things that I find that I see is a overwhelming desire of people to want to again break the game, and they'll spend years and years and years and years and years or hours and hours and hours doing it. And they'll refuse to play a game that they have not done that with because the standard of breaking the game is now the minimum standard for play. This is just buying it at the store. This is learning the game, going through your one or two read-throughs, and then all right. If I equate it to video games, it's like the first day that the game releases and you buy it, but you don't really play the game until you've played through it once, you know all the maps, you have all the DLC, and you've paid for all the optimum gear, guns, and all that stuff. And once there, that's where you play. And if one of your friends gets the game too, then they can't play with you because you're playing and taking care of all the things that they can't, and they're not getting any experience. You see what I mean? And this creates this pressure to put aside your hobby life balance. The place that I see this the most is in miniature painting. There are some super talented painters out there, like really super talented. Like, forget the Golden Demon thing that Games Workshop and Citadel paints and all that stuff. Forget what they do. Okay. I've gone into hundreds of game stores over the course of my life, and I've seen displays where these people are just like, these models are pure art and no longer toys, but pure art. I've seen so many display pieces. And I've seen them on such high levels that I'm just like, dude, this is some great stuff. Like, I think it was back in 2001. I collected Gundam models because they were $10 and they were toys. That was the whole thing. I didn't know I was supposed to be like sanding them and painting them and putting on different like levels of paint and darkening the recesses and stuff. I'm like, cool, this thing was from Gundam Wing. Yay! And I used to play with my nephew and do that too. It was all cool. It was something therapeutic. And I went down to one store in the city in Orange County. I think it's in Garden Grove. And they had Gundams on display. And I'm just like, wow, mine don't look like that. You know, now, is that the standard that I hold the fun of having a Gundam robot to? Absolutely not. Especially since I'm always going, I use really strong glue. when I see their models and their paint jobs, are those the standards that I hold myself to? No. And having dealt with so many new gamers over the past couple of decades, I see this paralysis that comes where when we set this standard that takes 100 hours of practice before we can even start, that can throw off our hobby life balance. Like, at what point when is it too much and not being fun anymore? Now, there's a lot of marketing that goes on with this, guys, and I hate it. All right. I hate the marketing that's promoted within our hobbies. Okay. And what do I mean? You talk to any comic fan and they'll tell you, no, man, comic books are designed to just pick up an issue and read it. No, I've not seen a one issue standalone comic for decades. Every time, like I inherited my older brother's comic collection back in like 84, 85. And I always saw that even back then they were referring to other issues, you know? And when the marketing involved in TTRPGs, you just need one book, a pencil, and paper, and that's it. And don't get me started on tabletop miniatures, okay? We market this thing like, oh no, it's super simple. All you need is this to play. All you need is this. All you need is this little bitty thing. And then when you try and enter into the community, your work-life balance or your hobby life balance goes way off because you got to catch up to whoever's already out there just to find somebody to play with, or you've wasted your money. So we need to work on that. We really do. We really need to work on that. Like, not gonna lie, my favorite board game of all time is Go. I have one or two boards. One of the boards I have is magnetic, so I can take it with me on the road, all that stuff. What do we got? Indoctrination starts in school. Teachers push the idea that you must be the best. You're constantly measured against your peers and everything becomes a competition. True. Very, very true. Okay. That's with your schoolwork and in gym class. Everybody wants the best person on their team so that they can win. I totally get the indoctrination. But Neon, you're one of the longer time viewers. So you know what we do here. What can we do about it? Well, number one, no joke. Thing number one that we can do about this type of thing is to, one, really take a look at what it is that we're starting. Okay. That's a big part. Whenever I bring a new player to my D&D table, I'm like, okay, these are the raw basics. All right. Species, character class, level. You start at level 1. Now your character class is your career, and I'm going to need you, once you pick a species and a job, I'm going to need you to read these parts of the book. And literally just the part for the character class, just the part for the job. And I'm like, I will walk you through everything else. All right. Yes, there are more powerful things, but can you use what you've got? And people are like, what are you talking about? Like, there's a spell that lets me do this. Rah! I'm like, yeah, but there's a first level spell that lets you do something almost as good that you could probably get now. And, it's, as you guys know, Roaming Dragon Games has been asking me to GM for them. The first time I sat at one of their tables, I made my cantrips sing. All right. I'm dead serious. I started as a first level wizard with thaumaturgy and mage hand, and those were my cantrips. And all the stuff I did with the mage hand, setting up traps and knocking things over and all of these things that did not count as attacks, but just made things more and more and more and more and more difficult for the opposition, or made things easier for the people around me. They were like, you could do all that? I'm like, yeah, I'm only using these 2 cantrips. But our hobby life balance falls apart when at the beginning we're looking for ways to catch up. Prestidigitation is awesome. I personally think it's too powerful for anyone who's creative. I seriously do. I seriously do. In Warp Tumblr's C23 episode 1, prestidigitation is not on the cantrips of some of the players. And one of the players literally cast a fireball by throwing a Molotov cocktail. Now, can you imagine throwing a Molotov cocktail and using prestidigitation to light it? Oh my God. But all of these things are worked out with the basics. Okay. And it doesn't take that long to do. But when our hobby and life balance is off, we don't get a lot of time to rest and to think about why we're doing these things. I have done a lot of research in a lot of groups on Reddit and Twitter and community posts and all this stuff when it came to Warhammer 40K fans. Okay, I'm talking about them primarily because they are the most zealous of hobby fandoms that I've seen. And I asked them a lot about what it was like when they were new. And I get the same story over and over and over again. They saw people playing, it looked fun, and then they started the investments, and then came the justification of the time and money. Now, coming from a background of tabletop RPGs, that was a little weird for me. That was a little weird for me coming back because, honestly, way back in the day, you really only needed the player's handbook, to play Dungeons and Dragons. Rifts, that was a different story. Because that led to the optimization and 20 hours of study, 30 hours of prep before actually being able to play. Okay? And that is where our work-life balance or our hobby life balance tends to go awry. Again, I love playing tabletop miniatures games. It gives me the sense of toys. Pew, 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 pew. Oh, yeah, who's trying to kill you? Pew, pew. What I hate doing is setting up tables. I'm not a big fan of painting miniatures. I do paint miniatures. I paint them a lot. Or should I say I slapdash some paint onto miniatures and then I move on. Even when I got into 3D printing, one of the things that I've noticed is every single hobby that we might want to get into seems to have a bunch of prerequisites that are hobbies in and of themselves that come with their own costs and their own learning curve. But in understanding why you're getting into things, okay, and this is big, and understanding your own motivation and knowing where your lines are, you have much more control over your hobby life balance. My friend who loves painting miniatures or who tries to get miniatures looking the absolute best that he possibly can, he's happy painting miniatures. He's happier painting miniatures than he is playing. I'm the exact opposite. I'll paint miniatures while I'm waiting to play. But quite honestly, I find fun in rolling the math rocks, No lie, like craps is one of my favorite games in Vegas. Okay. I like the creativity of role playing. I like solving puzzles. I like all of those aspects. So I find that I have a lot of games because I come from a background of building communities. Like, hey, this is a new thing. Let's all start together and advance. We can advance with the game. We're on the ground floor, you know, and that ground floor is really, really cool. Versus we're moving into an established culture. It's kind of like moving to America for the first time, you know? um, yeah, moving to America for the first time, and you end up in a crappy neighborhood, or you end up in a decent neighborhood that costs 18 times as much as you thought it would because there's a homeowners association, and then you have to use certain lawn services, and you have to keep your house painted a certain way, and then if you upset a neighbor, they release the city council. Really odd thing, because in all these hidden costs, that's where our work-life balance starts going up. When I go to a game store and I pull out models that I paint, people are like, "Oh my God, those models look so cool." I'm like, "Really? Thanks." I literally just kind of put them together, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time dedicated to learning painting techniques and all of that stuff. I've just been slapdashing stuff on for 20 something years, and I got better behind my back. And some people are like, "Hey man, you missed a spot on this model." I'm like, if that kills your immersion, that's a failure of imagination. But does it affect how my rocks go roll and then my figures go pew pew? Like, why are you playing? And I do understand. I really do. I understand that everybody wants to be good at something, and we all have our desire for expertise. As Neon Arlecchino pointed out a little earlier today, we were indoctrinated to this culture of competition, and a lot of games are based on competition. You know, me against you. And since we kind of have a moraine of sportsmanship in at least Southern California, if not the whole United States, it's really easy to get caught up in things that people say. Like when I first started playing Grimdark Firefight, I played the Tyranid analog. No. Yeah. I played the Tyranid analog because we're like, you only won because you're playing Math Hammer. And I'm like, what is that? Well, you're rolling a bunch of dice, so eventually the numbers are going to have to come up in your favor. And I'm like, okay, so you're saying that if I were playing your team the way that you played it, I would have lost? Probably. But honestly, I'm a music festival type of guy. I'm not a rap battle type of guy. What do I mean by that? At a music festival, you can have Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, Metallica, Lord, and Ariana Grande on the same stage at different times. And if you're there for the whole thing, you can enjoy all of it. Okay. So I walk into a game happy that I'm at a game in the same way that I go to a festival happy that I get to see a bunch of shows. But there are always the people, the bad sports out there that are like, well, you only won because you're playing differently from how I'm playing. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you're lesser than. It doesn't mean that I'm lesser than. It just means I won this game because my math rocks rolled funny. That's it. Nerd Souls content. And yeah, nah. Always telling people I'm snitching. I'm just telling it like it is. All right. So yeah, maybe that is snitching, but don't worry. I won't tell anybody where the bodies are buried if you pay me enough. Anyway, there's street code, and street code says my money, my money, my money. All right. So, but like I'm saying, knowing what you're getting into it for, like if you like a certain comic character, you don't have to own everything about that comic character. You don't have to dedicate your life to something because you like it. You don't have to dedicate every moment of your free time just to be a member of a community. And facts, if you do got to do that with that community, then you should be able to find another one. Okay. I will tell you, when I was playing Lord of the Rings, the card game, the people that I played with lived at home. Their family was paying for their college. I had child support payments and rent, and I didn't have good enough credit to get my own cell phone. So I was on one of those prepaid things. So out of my 40-hour work week, where was my time and money going? You know, so it's like, nah, man, I can't come with you guys to Vegas to play in this card competition. No, I can't afford to buy all of these rare cards, you know. I got to pay my phone bill so that y'all can contact me when you need me to open the store early. And I got to make sure that there's still a roof over my head. And I got to make sure that the $9 an hour I'm making doesn't get garnished for 50% of my net so that I can keep my place to live, you know? And that was a really big thing, but I liked playing, you know? So yeah, I mean, real talk, y'all can do that thing and that's the level that you're at. But if a hobby, just something that you do for enjoyment, isn't enjoyable because it takes too much darn time for too long to do it, or you have too many things that you're caught up in, then it might be time to step back. I hate to sound like a little Japanese woman, but these things, what are you talking about? I hate to sound like a little bitty Japanese woman, but if what you're doing doesn't spark joy, it's time to get rid of it. You know, it really is that much. Okay, Tyler, you're being weird, man. I don't even know what I'm like, what? Are you talking Battlestar Galactica? Because, yeah, I mean, yeah, they were space Jews. You know, it's a thing. But just laughter, statement. I don't know. If you troll too hard, I might have to ban you. Because I am liberal with the ban hammer. Know that. But, yeah. So, it made sense at the time when I typed it. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, so real talk, guys. When it comes down to the hobbies that you do and the things that you really want to get into, in order to keep a good balance and not to get swallowed up by it, it is really wise, really wise to ask yourself, all right, what about this do I enjoy? And why is it that I want to keep going? All right. So yeah, I mean, seriously, because truth be told, I'm with it. I'm with it all the way, you know? What's up? If T.I. has a career in comedy, you got a career. Do what you got to do. Oh, man. Yeah, thank you. But let's be real. T.I.'s career in comedy ain't really going to be that, yeah. Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah. I might talk with Nerd Soul on his channel about that whole T.I. stand-up thing. But yeah, he broke the first rule of stand-up comedy. I am so great, you should be liking me. No, man. No, if you're going to do stand-up comedy, if you're trying to do stand-up comedy and make people laugh, the first thing you have to understand is that you are the butt of the joke. You can talk about how rich you are, how great you are, all that stuff, as long as that punchline makes you look stupid. Okay? And T.I. ain't going out like that. he ain't that guy. You know, when are you going to get violent? And I'm like, what? You're trying to make me get violent? You know, I'm around all these white people. I don't need to get violent. I like walking around in the free air, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, you're the butt or you're the backhand. Nah, you get backhanded on your butt. That's just the whole thing. You know, like seriously. I gotta say, like, a lot of people have become really big jokes because, you know, if you talk about how great you are all the time, then people are going to be making jokes about how great you are, about how you have the best words. That's right. But seriously speaking, you know, when it comes to that hobby life balance, all right, like how much is too much? It becomes too much when you start looking at the thing that you put the time and energy into for fun as a chore. All right. This is why I'm not a really big fan of people talking about the piles of shame, Oh my God. Look at my look at my big pile of shame. I haven't painted all these miniatures yet. My God, there's so many of them there. Oh my God, I got to read these books in order to play all that. Oh my God, I have to finish doing all this stuff. Followers, primes, and viewers. Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at all that. Jeff Friendy, I got to say, your thing sounds a lot like like an advertisement. You have 30 seconds to tell me differently. But yeah, so fact of the matter is when these things that you do for fun are no longer fun, you can put them aside. Now, this is to my 40K people out there. I know how hard that is to hear. All right. To my comic fans, I know how hard that is to hear. How do I know how hard that is to hear? I will tell you. Comic books were my first major thing, right? Hey, look, we got a band. Yeah, comics were my first major things. But when I stopped reading comic books, or when I stopped buying them week after week, or when the comics that I was reading were written by writers that I didn't like and I didn't like their stories, I had to stop buying them. Okay. I'm like, no, man, no. I'm not going to spend money on this anymore. I still have, or I had before I moved back to LA, a closet full of Magic the Gathering cards from way back. Could I sell them? No. Can I use them as kindling in my burn barrel? Absolutely. So real talk, I just had to let that stuff go. All right. The sunken cost fallacy, i.e. in for a penny, in for a pound, that's not healthy when it's not making you happy. Okay. And everything we talk about here, everything that we do revolves around the stuff that we like. Okay. That's the whole thing. We like doing this stuff. But when these little things happen, and hey, thanks, Lunks, too many back issues to catch up on. If the last $500 in cardboard crack we spent no longer wins games, oh man, I will tell you, it's just time to do something else, And we have this thing in America, and this is something that I noticed when I was, a teenager, where we make fun of people for changing their interests, like, oh yeah, well, remember that one phase that you were into Star Wars, and that one phase you were into this, and that one phase that you were into that. And I'm like, bro, it made me happy when I was doing it, and then it stopped making me happy. So I went on to something else that made me happy. There is nothing wrong with having varied interest, guys. As y'all know, I grew up in the hood. All right. And in the 80s, I discovered 5 other types of music that were never really in my wheelhouse. Like, I grew up on rap and old R&B. I'm talking my mom's collection. So we're talking like Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway, B.B. King, Ray Charles, Anita Baker, Patti LaBelle. All right. And then the new R&B came along, and that was all nice and all that jazz. But, and then rap came along, and that was the primary thing at my school and at my block. But then I discovered metal and classic rock and country and western and Japanese folk music and Japanese pop music. And I'm just like, wow, there's so much more out there. And I was made fun of for not just listening to rap music. I was made fun of for not just listening to R&B. Than just liking that one thing, Now, a lot of people try and pull the, well, you got to commit card. And it's like, okay, well, commit to what? Commit to what and where? That's the whole thing. What am I committing to? Am I committing to this very, very, very small pocket as though there's nothing else out there? Here's my thing about that. I would be happy to commit to something that causes joy. Okay. However, if that one thing rejects me and I've committed to it all over the place, then where do I go? Where do I go? What do I do? Where do you go? What do you do? You know, to my 40K players out there, there are dozens of tabletop miniatures games out there that you can play that are model agnostic, which means you ain't got to buy nothing new. All right. You can just play what you got. Okay. Play with what you got and have fun with what you have. Let's see. What do we got? Some people have to compartmentalize the world to have it make sense. Going outside of their boxes frightens them. True. Yes, there are reaction channels for everything, Vixen. But there's so much out there. The world is so big and has so many people that are doing so many things that real talk will never, ever experience all of it. We'll never see all of it. But there's so much of it that can cause so much joy, and so much of it that we can learn from and evolve with, that to lock yourself down to one thing, one, maybe two things, just to lock yourself down to it and commit to it, whether or not you're growing or not growing or whatever, that limits not just the life that you can live, but the you. Does joy have value without hate? In truth, it's a philosophical riddle, Tyler. Does joy have value without hate? Well, I'll tell you this. Pleasure is pleasurable, regardless of its relation to pain. Okay? Things become relative once they've been established as a base. Now, when you smile, like when you're actually feeling joy, okay, when you're feeling joy, that sense of pride, and happiness, and the feeling that what you did, oh man. Well, you can also watch on YouTube, black and white now in color. But yeah, when you have that feeling is something that stands on its own, not in comparison to anything else. Okay. Just like when you have a seething hatred. All right. Emotions are emotions because they happen on their own. Now, we can put a lot of stock in comparing them to each other and comparing our experiences to each other. Excuse me. But the same culture that came up with that riddle also lives by a philosophy of being here now in the moment. Okay. Meaning commit yourself to right here, right now. Okay. Because this moment can be compared to other moments that you go through. My God, my bit rate is going down. I think it's because I'm dual streaming, and the time it is now is really stressing the place that I have. I guess I say the place that I can have over on YouTube. So that might be a thing. But just think about some of these things, guys. Just know the question of today: how many is too much? The only answer I have for you is when you have so much on your plate that you're not enjoying anything there, it might be time to scale back. Okay. Because remember, we're talking about hobbies. All right. So when are you watching too many Marvel shows? When are you going to the movies too much? Once the thing that you enjoy doing becomes a chore, it's time to take a step back. All right. Ask yourself why you're doing it. And, again, why you enjoy it. And if you don't anymore, then it's time to do something else. Anyway, with all that, I want to say major thanks. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I'm being played out at just the right time. I want to give a major thanks to my people in the chat here today. Who do we got? We got Neon Arlecchino, Clever Little Vixen, Black and White Now in Color. You know, yeah, I'm not gonna get Disney with that language. You know what? That's fine. Oh, that is a good question. All right. How do you expand your mental bandwidth? Well, one, it's not quick. All right. But the first way to expand your mental bandwidth is to first rest. You don't got to thank me for my time. You know, I am here Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I want to thank you for being here. Like, seriously. You know, thank you for following. Thank you for thinking about becoming a Decker. And if you got any questions or comments, any of you guys got any questions or comments and all that stuff, well, you guys can reach out to me at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also reach out to me on the social media that everybody has and no one likes. And we're talking Twitter right now. And thank you guys for showing up and being here. You know, that really does mean a lot to me. And remember, if anybody tells you that you